Welcome again to Charles Haugen Reviews, and today is the second part in our 28 series, and today we're going to be looking at 28 weeks later. Yesterday I had my review for 28 days later. I have some very interesting takes on 28 weeks, at least according to what I've seen from a lot of fans of this franchise, so without further ado, let's jump right in. Starting off with the synopsis of this film. So basically this is 28 weeks after the outbreak of the rage virus that we saw in 28 days later. And we follow at first a man and his wife who are living in this house with this old man, and then it gets overrun by infected, and we are given one of the most difficult to watch scenes ever. It's just masterfully done. I'm going to get more into that in the writing. But then, after this all happens, Dawn, who is played by Robert Carlyle, masterfully, may I add, he ends up escaping and leaving his wife behind. And then we fast forward to now their children are coming into England, which has been cordoned off and quarantined. There's zero infection inside of the city. But then the kids go and find their old house that they used to live in, and their mom is still alive. And it turns out that the mom has some type of genetic trait that allows her immunity to the virus. I would say that the cinematography of 28 weeks later is vastly different than 28 days later, but upon a rewatch, the biggest difference is the quality in picture, I would say. There is a lot of obviously handheld camera work in 28 days later. It's almost entirely handheld camera work. And despite them not using handheld cameras in this film, they still managed to create that shaky cam in the middle of the moment, almost found footage feeling. It's very jittery, very movement oriented. And I do feel like at times it's a little distracting. It's a little hard to really focus on what's happening, but at the same time, simultaneously, it builds upon the anxiety. It builds upon the stress of the situations that they're in. There aren't any shots that really just blew me away like we got in 28 days later, but I think overall the cinematography here is well done. We get some really cool wide-angle shots with the helicopter sequence, and the way that they shoot some of the violence is very well done. Lots of quick cuts, as I was hinting towards earlier, and I'm not the biggest fan of quick cuts, but I think that as far as 28 weeks later is concerned, it works here because it actually improves upon the atmosphere, whereas when we see these really quick cuts in a lot of other films, especially action films, it hinders what we're watching. But here it feels almost like a part of the DNA of what we're watching. And I think that the cinematography on the violence especially is very well done. It's very frenetic and chaotic. And there are some truly gross moments here where you kind of have to look away. And they don't really shy away from showing you. I mean, yes, they cut away pretty quickly, but you get to see it. And I think that was a bold choice as well, because we don't really get to see that in 28 days later. So 28 weeks had to step up the violence here, and they did a good job, and they filmed it pretty well while they were at it. Regarding VFX, one of my highlights of 28 days later was the lack of CGI and the propensity for them to use practical effects. 28 weeks, I would say that for a vast majority of the violence, it's practical, and the, hunt sequences, it's practical, but there is definitely some CGI being used here. There's CGI used in the very iconic, in my opinion, helicopter sequence, which was so satisfying, but that part definitely was heavy on the CGI. There are other parts here where it feels like the blood may have been CGI. There's certain angles there. I do appreciate them when they have a scene of somebody on fire. They had like a guy in a suit. I appreciate that. He's in one of those fireproof suits, and you can tell. And they have like a scene where the planes of the military carpet bomb the city, and I feel like the carpet bombing looks pretty good. It's definitely rough in today's standards, but for the time in 2007, I think it was pretty good. The scenes where they do use practical work are disgusting, gross. I would say even grosser than the first film, especially one early on in the film, the event that kind of culminates in the, I guess, outbreak, the second outbreak here that they're experiencing. What leads to that is gross. It's disgusting. But I really, really dig that sequence, and it kind of brought back a certain type of kill that was in the first movie. So overall, VFX are good here. I would have liked more practical, and where the practical did happen, it shined. It's just that with CGI, it gets outdated quick. And regarding the sound in 28 Weeks Later, they definitely ramped up the loudness, right? The 28 Days Later was more a quiet chaos. Like a lot of, I mentioned in the previous review, a lot of the zombie appearances and things like that are very quiet, and it added an extra layer of suspense. But here, it's pretty outright. It's pretty in your face. The sound design overall for a lot of these, it's okay. The explosions and the gunfire, things like that, it feels a bit too equalized, like it's not as loud as it should be, if that makes sense. It just kind of doesn't feel real at times. And I would say as well that the score here, while we do get that iconic 28 Days Later theme, I feel like it is kind of buried underneath everything else, and it doesn't come up as often as I would like. There aren't really any new additions here that stand out to me as far as the score is concerned, but those moments where we get that iconic score from the first film are totally worth it. This is a perfectly fine sound design and score here in 28 Weeks Later. No major complaints, just nitpicky things, and that's kind of the case with this film in general. And moving on to performances. This is one I'm really excited to talk about. Robert Carlyle gives possibly one of the best performances of his career. I mean, the guy's been in Trainspotting, Ravenous, lots of great films, but this one is just heartbreaking, and the way that he is able to convey his emotions, especially fear, is done so well. And the sequence specifically when he reunites with his wife is so heartbreaking to me, just in his facial features, just in the way that he is like conveying how guilty he feels, and it is truly heartbreaking. And even in the first opening of the film, when we get to see that this guy, deep down, he may be a good person, but he's also a coward. Seeing the scene where he's like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, and that panicked nonsense kind of like speech that he's giving because he's just totally shell-shocked, that was just done, it was executed so well. And the scene where he tells his kids what happened to their mother was also excellent. I mean, and then on top of that, right, we have this really sensitive character who genuinely seems like a good person, but in this circumstance, he is a coward, and the worst parts of him shine in this specific world. But when he becomes, I guess, spoiler alert, when he becomes an antagonist in a way, he's ruthless and just unstoppable and monstrous and vicious. And it's just such a cool shift in his character. It's almost like the calmer or the more complacent of a person you were in life, the worse that you're going to be in death. And I thought that was a great contrast, just him becoming this like almost ringleader. It was so cool. And Robert Carlyle able to flip that switch like that was just immense. He does not get enough credit as an actor. He does not get enough credit for this film, definitely. And other performances here, we have Rose Byrne in an early role, and she's fine. Doesn't have much to go, but she's okay. We have Idris Elba in a very minor role. I love Idris Elba. And he's okay here too. Not much to work with, right? That's going to be kind of the consistent thing here, is that there's not a lot for these actors to work with. And I feel like Idris Elba and Rose Byrne are the best examples of that. And I would say as well that Jeremy Renner and him in this as well, as for a very early role, he's fine. He's got some banter here that I can definitely see playing into his future role in The Hurt Locker with Harold Perrineau's character Flynn. And Harold Perrineau is another actor that I really like, been a fan of his since Lost, and he is really funny here, really good. But again, not a lot to work with, not a lot of screen time. And finally, Macintosh Muggleton, I gotta mention him, the child actor who plays the young boy. He's fine. Not a lot to work with. I told you that was going to keep coming up. Imogen Poots, she was good. She's probably the second best performance, well, third best performance in the film behind Robert Carlyle, and the second would have to go to Catherine McCormick, who plays Alice, the wife. I feel like she did a really good job conveying a range of emotions and showing trauma through her facial features and her reactions. And her conversations she does have, though limited, are done really well here. So no real complaints with the performances, because I do feel like the big actors that were in this, it was early on in their kind of taking off careers and they didn't have a lot to work with. But if you go see this, if you see movies for performances, go and see this one simply for Robert Carlyle, because he is a standout in this. And so far, we'll see with Bone Temple. I think that Robert Carlyle might be, his character Don might be the best performance in the whole franchise. Moving on to writing. I think that the writing here, it's definitely more centric to the characters. The first film, it felt like was more of an event film, as I mentioned in my review, but this one was definitely more character-centric, more about this journey and the relationships in this family. And I feel like it's an interesting take. I do think it's a really good idea to basically have this virus and this outbreak be contained and have a zone where it's free only for it to happen again. And actually, Danny Boyle and Alex Garland both worked on this script with the people that ended up taking over the film. I believe that Garland and Boyle had conflicting contracts or conflicting schedules, and they did Sunshine instead of this. And Sunshine's great. I mentioned that as well before. But I think that the writing is fine here. I think it's an interesting concept. We really haven't seen that kind of thing before, I don't think, where they actually contain it and it's pretty much not cured, but prevented at least. And you have almost this reconstruction of a society. So it's pretty cool. I think the writing is, excellent when it comes to the relationship with Don and his kids and his wife, and especially with Robert Carlyle as a coward. Like the writing for him as a coward and his dialogue and all that other stuff is just so masterfully done, and it just elevates this film to a point that it's like it would be so much lower on a scale if it wasn't for that driving factor. I will say, I do have some issues with the writing here. Kind of a similar issue to 28 Days Later. The helicopter sequence where Flynn is flying the helicopter and the guy's hanging on and blood and guts are flying everywhere. There had to have been gallons of blood that spilled upwards from the rudders, and the man who was like holding on to the legs of the helicopter, there's no way that none of that blood got on him. I can give the benefit of the doubt for Flynn since he's the pilot and he's inside of the cockpit, but this guy's dangling off the helicopter right there where all of this blood and limbs and crap are flying at him, and he doesn't get infected and then just falls off. I'm just kind of like, if you're going to have something that's this fast when it comes to transmission, if you're going to have something that is this easily contracted, it needs to be consistent, right? Because the whole outbreak starts because of a kiss. Like literally trading saliva, not even blood, like just saliva. And we saw in the first film when Frank gets one drop of blood in his eye, and that's it, right? So it's like, if that's the case, then why isn't this consistent in this film? And are you telling me that this guy hanging off of the leg of a helicopter a few feet above, gallons and buckets of blood splashing all over him, and none of it gets into any orifice? Not one? And this is an easy fix too, and this is where it frustrates me, because all you had to do was just have this guy fall off before that happens. That's all you had to do. Just have him fall off, land in the field, And then he does the whole awesome stunt there that's like one of the highlights of the film. That's it. Problem solved. So I don't understand why they didn't do that. It just felt kind of like a lazy choice. So that's probably the biggest thing that bothers me with the writing, especially in these first two films, is the inconsistencies with how the virus is contracted and how it's transmitted. But other than that, I don't have any other major complaints here with the writing. There's definitely some self-sacrifice scenes and things like that that felt kind of redundant, not really necessary. Oh, there is one other scene that kind of made me chuckle in a way that I don't think you're supposed to, because you're supposed to be like tense when this is happening. But there's a scene where Rose Byrne is guiding the two kids through a subway, and she has a gun that has night vision scope on it, so she can see the kids, and she's kind of guiding them in front of her. So there, on the writing portion, this bothered me because she says earlier on, like not even that much earlier on, she says that their lives are more important than hers. So why the hell are they in front of you and not behind you? You're the only one that can see, and you can see what's in front of you, and you can have them kind of guide your way. Like, I understand her trying to tell them not to step on things, but that felt really kind of dumb too. These kids have been seeing people get murdered and butchered in front of their eyes, and you're telling me that now when they step on a dead body in a subway, they're suddenly going to lose their minds? Like, you know, I know it's pitch black, I know it's scary, I know they can't see anything, but that felt really dumb. It just didn't feel like it needed to be in the film at all. And the part that made me chuckle, though, was Rose Byrne. Whenever they were about to step on a body, she would like scream at them and like, stop, stop! And the kids are like, ah! And freak out. And it's like, who wrote this, man? Like, why would you scream at kids in pitch black darkness to stop when you're trying to get them calm? And right after she would scream at them and make them freak the hell out, she would be like, it's okay, stay calm, stay calm. It's like, you're the one that needs to stay calm, lady. That whole part made me chuckle. I shouldn't have, because that's not what it's supposed to do, but that's the reaction I had, and I imagine a lot of other people probably had that reaction. It just didn't work, and that whole sequence can be cut out. It didn't build on tension, didn't add anything to the plot. It was unnecessary. There's a lot of different ways that you could have done that, like her guiding the kids instead of the kids technically guiding her. Like, that was kind of dumb. You know, if I was in that situation and these kids their lives meant more to me than my own, then I would be in the lead if I was the only one that could see. And I would, you know, I might even get like belts or a rope or something and tie us all together, and then maybe we would all hold hands. Like, there's so many different things you could do here, and I just don't know why they went this route. It just felt really dumb, and that's the best way I can say it. I know it sounds like I've said a lot of negative things, but these were just the two parts that really bothered me. Everything else in the film is fine, and if you can look over these two, I don't know, 2 or 3 minute sequences, it's really good. So don't let all of this rambling and ranting and raving dissuade you from watching the movie, because it's literally just 2 really short scenes. And now for my overall rating for 28 Weeks Later, guys, I'm going to have to lean into a 7.5 out of 10. It is not as good as the first film, and they doubled down on the issue with contracting or transmitting the virus, and that kind of like bumps it down even more, because it's like, on your first go, whatever, it's forgivable, but on your second go and you're still not consistent, that bothers me a little bit. So with the inconsistency there, that continues, and then with that one scene I mentioned, some of the spotty writing, actors not getting enough screen time or enough to work with, but having these big ticket actors. And even back then, I think that they might not have been the superstars they are now, but they were still up and comers, and I feel like they deserve better. And but Robert Carlyle honestly carries this. If it wasn't for his performance, this could easily be like a 5 or a 6, or maybe even lower. He is the shining example of like what a dynamic character in a zombie or apocalypse film should be. But yeah, 7.5 out of 10, a little bit lower than 28 Days Later, but still really underrated. People hate this movie. I don't get it. And it is canon, because Danny Boyle literally was going to direct this, and him and Alex Garland wrote the idea for it, and it was Boyle's idea in the first place. So anyways, that's a whole different debate for another time. I hope that you enjoyed this review. Check out my review for 28 Days Later. And in addition to that, keep an eye out. Tomorrow, 28 Years Later trailer, and then on Friday, the Bone Temple trailer. I will have my short reaction to Bone Temple out tomorrow night after the publication of the 28 Years Later review. So keep an eye out for all of that. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you all soon.